The Braintree Instructions, adopted by a town meeting in Braintree, September 24th, 1765. To Ebenezer Thayer, Esquire.
Sir, in all the calamities which have ever befallen this country, we have never felt so great a concern or such alarming apprehensions as on this occasion. Such is our loyalty to the King, our veneration for both Houses of Parliament, and our affection for our fellow subjects in Britain. This measures which discovery any unkindness in that country towards us are more than sensibly and intimately felt.
And we can no longer forbear complaining that many of the measures of the late ministry and some of the late acts of Parliament have a tendency, in our apprehension, to divert us from our most essential rights and liberties.
We shall confine ourselves, however, chiefly to the Act of Parliament, commonly called the Stamp Act, by which a very burthensome and, in our opinion, unconstitutional tax is to be laid upon us all, and we subjected to numerous and enormous penalties, to be prosecuted, sued for, and recovered at the option of an informer, in a court of admiralty, without a jury.
We have called this a burthensome tax because the duties are so numerous and so high, and the embarrassments to the business in this infant, sparsely settled country so great that it would be totally impossible for the people to subsist under it if we had no controversy at all about the right and authority of imposing it. Considering the present scarcity of money, we have reason to think the execution of the act for a short space of time would drain the country of its cash, strip multitudes of all their property, and reduce them to absolute beggary.
And what the consequence would be to peace of the province from so sudden a shock and such a conclusive change in the whole course of our business and substance, we tremble and consider. We further apprehend the tax to be unconstitutional. We have always understood it to be a grand and fundamental principle of the Constitution that no free man should be able to subject to any tax which he has not given his own consent, in person or by proxy.
And the maxims of the law, as we have constantly received them, are to the same effect, that no freeman can be separated from his property but by his own act or fault. We take it clearly, therefore, to be inconsistent with the spirit of the common law and of the essential fundamental principles of the British Constitution, that we should be subject to any tax imposed by the British Parliament, because we are not represented in that assembly in any sense, unless it be by a fiction of law, as insensible in theory as it would be injurious in practice, if such a taxation should be grounded on it.
But the most grievous innovation of all is the alarming extension of the power of the Court of Admiralty. In these courts, one judge presides alone. No juries have any concern there. The law and the fact are both be decided by the same single judge, whose commission is only during pleasure, and with whom, as we are told, the most mischievous of all customs has become established, that of taking commissions on all commendations, so that he is under a pecuniary temptation always against the subject.
Now, if the wisdom of the mother country has thought the independency of the judges so essential to impartial administration of justice as to render them independent of every power on earth, independent of the king, the lords, the commons, the people, nay, independent in hope and expectation of the heir apparent, by continuing their commissions after a dement of the crown with what justice and impartially are we at 3,000 miles distance from the fountain to expect from such a different judge of admiralty?
We have all along thought the acts of trade in this respect a grievance, but the Stamp Act has opened a vast number of sources of new crimes, which may be committed by any man and cannot but be committed by multitudes, and prejudice penalties are enacted, and all these are to be tried by such a judge of such a court.
What can be wanting after this but a weak or wicked man for a judge to render us the most sordid and forlorn of slaves? We mean the slaves of a slave, of the servants of a minister of state. We cannot help asserting, therefore, that this part of the act will make an essential change to the constitution of juries, and it is directly repugnant of the charter itself. No emancipation shall be assessed but by the oath of honest and lawful vinces, and no freeman shall be taken or imprisoned or deceased of his freelorn or liberties, of free customs, nor passed upon nor condemned by lawful judgment of his peers, nor by the law of the land.
So that this act will make such a distinction and create such a difference between the subjects of Great Britain and those in America as we could have not expected from the guardians of liberty in both.
As these, sir, are our sentiments of this act, we, the freeholders and other inhabitants, legally assembled for this purpose, must enjoin it upon you to comply with no measures or proposals for countenancing the same or assisting in the execution of it, but by all lawful means, consistent with our allegiance to the King and relation to Great Britain, to oppose the execution of it, till we can hear the success of the cries and pensions of America for relief. We further recommend the most clear and explicit assertion and vindication of our rights and liberties to be entered on the public records, that the world may know, in the present and all future generations, that we have a clear knowledge and a just sense of them, and, with submission to divine providence, that we will never be slaves.
Nor can we think it is advisable to agree to any steps for the protection of stamped papers or stamped officers. Good and wholesome laws have already for the preservation of the peace, and we apprehend there is no further damage of tumult and disorder, to which we have a well-grounded aversion, and that any extraordinary and expensive exertions will tend to exasperate the people and endanger public tranquility, rather than the contrary.
Indeed, we cannot too often inculcate upon your desires that all extraordinary grants and expensive measures may upon all occasions as much as possible be avoided. The public money of this country in the toil of the labor of the people who are under many uncommon difficulties and distress at this time, so that all responsible frugality ought to be preserved.
And we would recommend particularly the strictest care and the utmost firmest to prevent all unconstitutional drafts upon the public treasury.
Samuel Niles, John Adams, Norton Quincy, James Penniman, and John Hayward.